Welcome to the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast Spotlight, where we revisit take-home messages and shine a light on previous FRW podcasts in 10 minutes or less. I'm Lex, AZ's right and left-hand woman, and I churn out these mini episodes for her. Let's go.
I know you have some particular gears to grind, if you will. And I know that one of them that you've been talking a lot about recently is caffeine and energy drinks. So let's riff on that for a little bit. Tell us all the things.
About caffeine and energy drinks? Yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
This is one of my favorite tangents to go on at the firehouse because we're seeing a lot more energy drinks, and the caffeine seems to get higher and higher and higher for these products. And of course, first responders who are exhausted, working 24-hour shifts, midnights, overtime, all of the things, you're going to lean right into energy drinks and things that keep you awake. Now, of course, I don't usually recommend energy drinks, but for some first responders, that's a necessary evil. If they have an hour and a half commute home and they, got their butt kicked overnight with 4 calls after midnight, what are we going to do about that kind of thing? They have to stay awake to get back. So in general, before I kind of go down that energy drink tangent, we're looking at trying to keep caffeine under 400 milligrams a day. That's the FDA recommendation is under 400 milligrams, which for our coffee drinkers is the equivalent of 32 to 40 ounces total of coffee in a day, which is typically not unreasonable for most people. There's always that kind of salty captain who just kind of is on a steady drip at the station all day. That's another conversation.
Like for another IV, time. Maybe just straight mainline it.
Mainline it. There's multiple different ways, So yeah, that's kind of what we're working with is roughly 32 to 40 ounces total in a day. So, if you did that 20 ounce mug in the morning, you can still get away with usually about 20 ounces in the afternoon, and you'd still be under that recommendation. Now with that, so then as soon as I say that, it's like, well, okay, cool. Bang, Rain, Celsius Heat, they're 300 milligrams. That's under the 400 milligram, number, right?
Right.
But the FDA recommendation in a sitting is 200 milligrams. Trying to keep it underneath that. Now for athletes, we do see research and going higher than that. But the challenge with first responders is one, they're already probably kind of in a deficit from a sleep standpoint, especially if they have kids or they worked overtime, those kinds of things. But also the risk for side effects goes up as we increase the amount of caffeine in a sitting. So with that, if your thing is not coffee or tea or, sodas, whatever for your caffeine, typically it's energy drinks and pre-workouts that we're then talking about next. Now, like I said, pre-workouts, energy drinks, don't recommend them, primarily due to the side effects and the tendency that, at a certain point you build a tolerance to caffeine, and one energy drink doesn't do it anymore. One scoop of pre-workout doesn't do it anymore. I saw it in college when Jacked 3D, aka the cocaine of pre-workouts, the original formula, took out probably half of the frat boys at James Madison University with arrhythmias in about a semester. So, here's the thing with that. I know my first responders are probably going to do it regardless of what I say, but if you're willing to meet me halfway, just keep under that 400 milligram mark of total caffeine per day from your energy drinks, your coffees, your teas, your sodas, your pre-workout supplements. But really keep an eye. I mean, there are some out there that there's pre-workout supplements that are 400 milligrams in a scoop of pre-workout. I mean, it's typically not necessary, and it's risky if you're actually on shift, because if you take that pre-workout and you get a call, I mean, you're going to want to take down a gorilla by the time you get to transport grandma to the hospital. So
well, and actually it's interesting, and I feel bad I can't cite the source, but in the recent ISSN position stand on tactical athlete fueling, they did cite one source that talked about caffeine in excess of 6 milligrams per kilogram per day. So that's even a healthier dose, heartier dose, I should say, than you're talking about, was showing coagulation in firefighters during structural firefighting. So You're right.
Yeah.
There's absolutely a risk to it. So you're telling me 400 milligrams per day, no
Mhm.
more than 200 milligrams at any one sitting. And then what are you counseling your firefighters as far as how late in the day can they push that caffeine and have it be quote unquote okay?
Yeah, that's a great question. So caffeine typically has a half life of 4 to 6 hours, somewhere between there. Each person's a little bit different from a genetic standpoint. Some of us have faster clearance rates. Some of us have slower clearance rates for caffeine. But basically, what that would mean, in simpler terms, is that if you have 200 milligram energy drink at 4 p.m. and you go try to lay down at 9 p.m., it won't. You'll have at least 100 milligrams circulating in your system still. That won't prevent you from falling asleep for a lot of people. But what it will do is it'll mess around with your sleep cycles. So you spend less time in deep or REM, rapid eye movement, restorative sleep. So then you wake up the next day, you don't feel very good. What do you reach for more of? The caffeine. So I can't do a whole lot about the lady in the ceiling hollering at you to get up 4 times after midnight. But at the same time, if you're really struggling with your sleep, or you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I'm probably closer to a gram of caffeine, which is not uncommon at some of our tech rescue stations, apparently. Then, maybe you want to consider pulling back on that, because a lot of times the closer you get to like 800, 900 milligrams, you're probably drinking a good hefty dose later in the day, which then impacts your sleep further. So,
Absolutely. And one of my longtime friends, Thai Nordic, was up around a gram of caffeine per day, like just on a regular day. And he recently, not too long ago, he went off the caffeine, and I don't really think he tapered it. So, can you talk to us about the challenges if you don't taper off the caffeine?
yeah, absolutely. So, cold turkey is like typically the biggest way that people cut out caffeine. And a lot of times they hear from all different types of professionals, oh, well, just you shouldn't be drinking any caffeine at all. And I don't think that's reasonable. Even as a dietitian who sleeps at night, like if I don't have caffeine, someone's going to die first thing in the morning. So it's very risky. And there's no real evidence for healthy people for us to say that you shouldn't have it at all. So again, that 400 milligram dose for healthy individuals is perfectly fine. But if you do notice, maybe you have high blood pressure, or you get anxiety, you're having issues with anxiety, you have acid reflux or GERD, all of those conditions we actually reduce caffeine or may have to eliminate because they can make the symptoms worse. Um, so in that case, you may have to cut back, or you may have to taper back from 800 milligrams to 400 milligrams. So when you're tapering back, I usually say we're just trying to make better decisions there. So if you're gotten to a really sad point in my career where I recommend Monsters now, because because Bang is at 300 milligrams of caffeine. Monster, Rockstar, those are closer to 150 milligrams of caffeine. So it's literally a step down for people when they're trying to cut back on caffeine. So, try and choose an energy drink that's lower caffeine, so you still have, the taste, or the caffeine, the I guess routine of having that energy drink, but again, it's less caffeine.